This is a walk down Crazy Town, session 3. Did we finish this discussion? I think we've also discussed, and I think I've already described the model, this toroidal uh, folding in on itself. And this is how energy preserves itself. This is not the shape, for example, of the Planck universe. Don't confuse the two. This is simply how energy exits a point and then enters back into the point. And so my suspicion is this. So we don't understand what exactly is mass. So if you ask a physicist and so forth, they simply can't clearly explain, articulate what is mass. And they go into explaining, I don't know, coiled springs and so forth, but not explaining what exactly is mass. And I think what they miss is the E equals mc squared equation, because whatever energy is used to radiate and create you as a being, its equal and opposite is held as a mass, as gravity within you. So I would assume for the mass to be valid, let's assume you are 80 kilograms or whatever, the equivalent amount of energy required to power you can be calculated, and it's a supremely big number. It is, because it's multiplied by the speed of light squared, the energy is actually a supremely big number. And that goes for everything. But a lot of energy is used, but all of it is recuperated as well. And so the light show continues, but I think very little is actually consumed. It's more just friction that's generated from an outward field and an inward field. So that reminds me, you see the how the what's that sine wave? How the electromagnetic sine wave is displayed. By default, it is displayed as both waves traveling, propagating in the same direction. This once again goes back to the how I know, or rather how I know they don't know. Because um, whenever they show this, it's always that both waves propagate in the same direction. So in my model, uh, they propagate in opposite directions. At least the outgoing wave and the ingoing wave cross over, but it's almost like traffic traveling in opposite directions. They're not traffic traveling in the same direction. And they pass each other at 90 degrees, very much like how we have defined a T-junction. Um, and they simply do not interfere with each other, although they probably influence each other uh, in a way. So let's leave that. Uh, this is going to be always, I think, in the walk down Crazy Town. It's always a stroll in multiple directions, but there's a lot to cover. Okay, the Planck unit as folded supreme. Yeah. This is true. So, uh, s- so awareness. So maybe we should start at this awareness discussion. So understand that awareness is a noun. It's a state of just, it's a state. And when awareness is triggered by a thought, an action, it then becomes consciousness. So this is the verb of awareness. So there was actually a very good article that I saw. Between awareness, consciousness. And it's a nice article somewhere. This one. So in this one, just this, I think this first abstract gives us a good one. And so it's proposed that consciousness is different from awareness. Consciousness can be thought of as a dualistic, embodied, and embedded cognitive process, whereas awareness is a non-dual, non-local process. So the noun and the verb, okay? And the thing that's making the noun do the verb is thought. And this is the mental universe that triggers the entire thing. So this thought then triggers. This thought is probably the first, the subtlest of the electromagnetic spectrum. It decomposes into mind, into light, and all that. But it's all part of the same spectrum. So again, science would stop at a point of frequency subtlety that they would assume is the end, but there's probably a subtler. And that's the thought wave universe as well. So, not forgetting the spirit wave universe. So, so when all now, it's important to understand why I say size. Why the highest potential is tied up in the smallest of spaces. This is how it is. And it's almost an analogy of a cracker. You know those firecrackers? And you have to bind it very, very tightly. You have to bind that gunpowder very, very tightly for it to have a nice big explosion. When it's packed loosely, it doesn't have that oomph. Similarly, it's the same thing. Smaller capacitance, higher the higher the punch that's packed within it. But it has to be drawn out. And if you're unable to understand how to draw it out, and we are accidentally drawing it out in the form of electricity at the moment, uh, but we don't do it efficiently, we don't do it optimally, we have not done it optimally. And yeah, that's more or less the story there. Uh, Yeah, so all knowledge, all information, all everything is replicated and stored at a Planck level. And because the Planck level is such a superfine level, it requires the mind to be supremely still before it can enter it. And without being supremely still, uh, you are unable to willfully access the supreme knowledge of the Akashic records. We unknowingly do it. Whenever you have a great inspirational thought, it's coming from accessing the Akashic records. But to do it willfully is uh, the thing you want to learn to do. And if you look at many, I'd say, advanced skills, remote viewing, remote healing, um, a lot of they require meditation first. It requires a very, very stable mind before you attempt advanced techniques of many things. Um, Simply the gateway. Okay, we've talked about this ad nauseum. Why it must be a sphere, we've discussed this ad nauseum. There's no other shape because anything with a sharp edge requires a distance that, if these two are Planck units in length, this unit does not exist, and therefore that triangular shape cannot. Um, we talked about the packing factor. So, ironically, this picture of the oranges is a very inefficient packing factor. And in fact, it's more like the flower of life um, pattern, which is a series of overlapping circles like so. And I like that picture actually. So it's more like that, where this is one Planck unit. The second one overlaps at 50%, creating a Vesica Pisces, which has a number of great constants. There we go. Um, but there's so much more to it. Let's just add one more picture. Um, the root 2, root 3, root 5, this picture. Yeah, that one is a cool picture. So it has a number of infinite numbers embedded within it. So root 2, for example, is an infinite number. It really goes on forever. Good. That picture, Visca. Flower of life, we've talked about this as well. So I've put it in that flower of life shape. But this is the tightest packing factor and that vacuum pull based on no available gap. So what I mean by that is, let's just draw it one last time and clarify that statement, why I say it has to be a 50% overlap. So let's take circle, circle. And what I'm saying is that the tightest packing factor in material world is that, okay, where we can pack it as tight as possible, but what you would have is a gap in between these and that little black gap there. However, at a Planck scale, what is critically important to understand is that this is the size limit. This little red, that that length is the size is the size limit. So you cannot have a length of this length. Simply does not exist. This length violates all law. And in order to eliminate that, there's a vacuum pull, a tremendous vacuum pull that takes it 50% across. I'll just make one temporarily, 50%, and do it twice. So it's a 50% overlap, something like that. You get the picture. You figured it out. But that's important. This is how it then forms itself. And so the flower of life pattern, if you just continue doing this, you will eventually get to it. Of course, I missed the initial measurement, so winging it at the moment. Mm. Oh, not too bad. Not too bad for a wing. Let's put all the outlines in white. Not that one. White. There we go. So something like that. Let's take out that middle line. Looks uncomfortable. No. Ah, delete. Good. So there we go. That's that packing factor. Very, very tight packing factor. And whilst the flower of life has 6, I don't know how many the actual Planck universe have. It could have infinitely many. Mm. It doesn't have to be so frugal. That means every angle, every single angle is covered in its projection. It's not limited to this. Um, so let's get back. Visca Pisces, yeah, flower of life pattern. Space as conscious ether. Yeah, so in my model, why not? Why have
Right.
Yeah, so in this model of mine, we have awareness, conscious, yeah, at a Planck level. Uh, so you're being observed every single time. Everything you do is being observed, unfortunately, from within and from outside. Uh, it probably all has to reconcile itself from an information perspective, but it does it all instantaneously. Electricity as field exchange in the lattice. Um, yeah, that one is the second one is a bit of a challenge for me. Um, yeah, but it's almost like, how can I say, it's strings on a tennis racket, the electric and magnetic field, but going in opposite directions, one outwards, one inwards. Um, but it's a double spiral torus. So it's the outward field of the one torus and the inward field of the other torus that cross over. So because it exits one side and enters the other side, and the one from the bottom exits the bottom and enters the top. So this is this crossing over. So I need to maybe talk about this one because it's worrying me a bit. I don't know how to handle it. So the field. Do I have that picture here? I should have it. So in this picture, so my suspicion is that it's still a game between the outward field and the inward field. And the dielectric is just is an illusion. It's a tugging of this where both two fields are tugging at a point. And so it creates an illusion of a photon or a unit of light, which then creates this dielectric field. But the dielectric field is simply a product of these other two that are tugging on a spot. So whereas Steinmetz had one field as the dielectric. My feeling is dielectric is possibly just uh, not an illusion. Yeah, maybe it's an illusion. It's a tugging of the two fields, the other two fields, the outward radiative field and the inward gravitative field. So that one we may need to change. Light as foundational lattice oscillation, depending how we define what light is. So I like the JC, Jesus version of light, when he says, I am the light. It's not simply just the light from the visible spectrum light, but it's the full spectrum electromagnetic radiation. And this starts, or rather, it's the full spectrum we know from gamma to radio waves and so forth, and microwave and um, visible light as well. So that full spectrum. But it actually goes a little bit further, even more subtler to thought. Thought is also a part of the electromagnetic spectrum. But I think thought can also travel at a different using a different medium within what's available in the universe. So light here, as long as light is full spectrum electromagnetism, so electromagnetism is what travels at the speed of electromagnetism, and light is one of those forms of electromagnetism. We are technically blind in this universe. How do I mean that is blindness is defined as what is blindness? How is it's how is hold on, why am I doing it in this? Let's chat to ChatGPT. How is blindness defined? So basically 20%. How can I say that? What's that? 20 over 200. That means you can see some things at 20 meters where a normal person can see it at 200 meters. Okay, that's really bad, I guess, if that's what they mean. Um, but so if we only see light, visible light in the electromagnetic spectrum, and if you assume the full electromagnetic spectrum as the full visible universe, how much, what percent blind are we as human beings? So I'm saying the full electromagnetic spectrum is quite big. From there, we're like peering through a tiny little sliver called visible light. But you could have beings of different frequencies that are sitting right next to you, and you'd be simply blind to them. And yeah, I think the what was that? The movie The Others, the Nicole Kidman movie, gives that very good analogy. So yeah, there we go. Well, this is the answer I want. So you're probably like 99.9999 blind. You're only seeing the electromagnetic spectrum. What am I saying? You're seeing just the light within the electromagnetic spectrum. So I think I've got a picture as well. Let me find a picture. Where's my mirror? So what I mean by that, let's go. So you see, you've got this full spectrum of all different frequencies, and they cascade upon each other, getting larger and larger and larger and larger and larger and larger. And we only are able to view that like a little peep show. Uh, but the rest of the universe is blind to us. So you get like even insects that have better capabilities. They can see more on the UV spectrum. And it's almost like a super capability. Um, good. Let's move on swiftly. Let's close that. So yeah, light as a foundational lattice oscillation. Good. Electric universe and multidimensional grid. The universe operates as an electric transmission system. So now have I explained this properly? I don't think so. So don't think I've explained it, but let's find an image. Yeah, this is good. This is good. That is good. So something like this is what I'm talking about, okay? So guess this is original knowledge drop number 87. But what I'm saying is this, is that the ether, the space also serves as a electricity transmission network. Now we on Earth, we have here there we go, I did it here. We have a sort of two-dimensional, the creation mimicking the creator. So our electricity transmission is lines, which is like a one dimensional. Whereas energy in the universe is three-dimensional. It is provided at anywhere, at any point in time, anywhere in the universe, and it's an inside out pull. You can draw it out anytime you want. Oh, by the way, this picture, this is an interesting relationship between, that's a magnet, this piece of straw, string, magnet, and you put the magnet in water, it's normal, regular old water, and you let it freeze, put it into the freezer for a while, and you see this a violent little vortex like that. It's pretty cool. That's my picture. I did this one, by the way, and that. So really cool. Hey, that's my flower of life, by the way. Um, good. So with a few dimensions below on the energy transmission network, the universe's electricity transmission network is 3D. The source is actually 4D. The transmission is 3D. Okay. And it's basically such a high level of granularity that you simply just you walk through the ether and Googles upon Googles of ether particles hand over the electricity provision to another one, and that seamlessly keeps you alive. Yeah, this is very nice. So they're saying that beings as gyroscope. So everything is basically gyroscopic action, even the elements, the atoms. I think it's very close to what Walter Russell said. So if you learn Walter Russell stuff, and he's always talking about this ant and elephant playing sort of game of tug of war, where the ant is a small, tiny point, and the elephant is the entire atom, the entire universe, or whatever you want to call it. But essentially, the 0 point holds the whole into play in place, and it's very nice when you feel a gyroscope in motion because you feel this additional resistance that's there in its presence when it's spinning, and you feel this presence of spin. It's almost like the center of gravity is no more within the object, but actually slightly outside the object. Uh, Maybe I should talk about that as well. Should I? Maybe not. Good. So here, maybe that's a good point to. Let's see, Kashadev scale. Let's see. So I think I must rephrase this. I think shame. I need to give 5 francs here. I think somehow. Um. So have you heard of the Kashadev scale? So Kashadev scale talks about civilizations and levels of civilizations. And so sort of type 1 civilization, type 2, type 3. And type 1 would have all access to all the energy of their planet. Type 2 can consume energy directly from its star. Type 3 civilization captures power of the galaxy. So it's really about energy consumption. Um, and according to this, we are 0.6. That one, I think we are somewhere around there. Where are we now? Uh, are we there? So we're still under 0.733 on the scale yet. So we haven't even passed level 1 civilization yet. Neither have we passed level 2, level 3. So we're still a very primitive civilization, at least from this scale's view. Um, And it all goes back to, for me, this. And until we understand how to do that properly, I guess how to understand electricity properly in the first place, then we are unable to proceed on that scale, the Kardashev scale. Personal path meditation and alternate. Okay, I've talked about that. Downloads, Walter Russell. Yeah, so this was very funny because this was a pretty funny thing that happened. So let me tell the story quickly. So my wife had performed a QHHT, quantum healing hypnosis therapy on me. And what that is it's a past life regression. And uh, wifey took me back to two past lives, and it showed me two different past lives, very different past lives, very human feeling past lives. I was open to all alien past lives, non-alien, you name it, because all forms of life are there in the universe, and you're going to have experience of all as an infinite immortal being. But both I had were more or less, it felt earth-based. I could not see myself as such, but the experience of people I was seeing and whatever it was, yeah. But it felt like me. I felt me. And the good thing is you describe your own experience. And so you can't lie to yourself. And so, anyways, after that, this happened about 5 years ago, I think, 6 years ago, maybe. And 3 days later, it was somewhere in April. It was on the 25th of April, about the 27th of April, this happened, 2 days after my wife's birthday. And boom, a download starts. It's a continuous and sudden and rapid flow of information that just keeps flowing. And it's questions, it's visuals, it's a lot of stuff that's happening, very visual. And so it was almost like so this download happened for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So I was awake 22 hours a day. I went to sleep at 5 a.m., got up at 7. As soon as you wake up, boom, the download continues, and it's relentless. It's happening all the time. And I probably was able to write down 5 to 10% of it. So I wrote about 500 pages. Um, but the flow is so ferocious. There's so much that you just like trying. It's like, those where there's money floating in this closed container and you have to grab as many as you can that's floating around. And it was like that. The download is so rapid and so much is coming down. And as much as you can capture, you're captured. And so what was being described to me was not a universe of particles. It was not a, it was, so for example, I was given this view. I was given a view of an explosion. It was like a explosion. And what's happening at the point in the center? What's happening at the point in the center? And again, an explosion. And it's spiraling and rotating. What's happening at the center? What's happening at the center? Then it converts to this dancing Shiva, the Nataraja. And this guy. And so he's the analogy of this dancing. He's also, by the way, in front of CERN. And he's probably that description of the atom, the full, complete cosmic dancer. He continues his dance, and through his dance, he creates time, space, energy, matter, civilization, realization. Everything is there. It's within his universe. There's flames around him. That's the electricity. Electricity flowing through him. These probably like electric wires, his hair. But anyways, so he's spinning around violently. He's not just stationary, he's spinning around violently in this visual. And again, what's happening at the center? What's happening at the center? So what it was almost pushing is a very obvious realization that there's an equal and opposite. So whatever is being exploded outwards has to be held equal and opposite at a tiniest spot, that Planck unit level, and everything is held in equal and opposite measure at that point. Uh, and you understand that the power is not in the massive, it's in the tiniest. That's where the Supreme has hidden itself, in the tiniest of tiny. Um, and so this is one of the visuals. It was this explosion, this violent explosion, and what is happening at the center. And it's almost that formed the basis of the 0 = 1 - 1 equation. It's that violent dance, the dance of the cosmic. So um, through that download, oh, it was crazy, insane. I've had a few others, there's so many more. And not as long as the 14-day one, but I've had a couple of good downloads. And the rules of that is you have to get a very still and coherent mind. And unfortunately, I'd say for seekers of knowledge, especially like myself, it's an Achilles heel because we like the pursuit of knowledge, and the actual supreme knowledge is you need to stay still. It's like that same quicksand analogy. It's if you move too much in quicksand, you will sink. You have to stay still. And then the quicksand slowly releases you. You float up a bit, lie back, and it'll release you. But similarly, your mind is like that. It is a Newtonian fluid that locks you in. It locks you into the illusion, and you have to um, still the mind, still the body, still the mind, to access that supreme level. It's a non-thinking level. The next level of thought is non-thinking, if that makes sense. So Walter Russell actually has a very good picture. It's called Knowing Mind. It's got knowing mind, it's thinking mind and knowing mind. Okay, left and right is sort of your two poles of this one. Okay, I don't have that. But this picture here, where sort of these two lobes of the brain are firing as a compensatory measure to exist in this 3D realm. But the highest state is when you can shut these two off and you operate from the central point, a knowing mind perspective. Maybe the ancients called it the third eye and stuff like that. But uh, I, when you're operating from that perspective, you feel it. You feel this tug in the central point, and there's a smooth flow of information. You're simply just broadcasting at that point. You're not even thinking. There's no level of thinking in that, and it's hard to reach to regain that state. It has to work. You have to work at it. Akashic field as universal memory. Yeah, yeah, correct. So it's really a universal internet. All information available all over, freely accessible to all beings within its universe, provided you know how to access it. And the silent mind is one of the advanced states of access of it. I think even if when you could be sitting just focusing on drawing or painting, you'd have your most inspirational thoughts. It's because you're in a meditative state and more prone to access that Akashic records, the Akashic records. Good. Chapter 29. I think we're almost at the end of this part. Integration of science, spirituality, philosophy. Yeah, great. Is that the end? Okay, I guess that's the end of this part. So, where was I? Um, so where to next, I guess is the question. Um, um, oh, I'll show you this actually. So this, if I have this guy's name, hmm. So this guy, anyway, the author of these three books below, once they load up, can't remember his name yet. I just got this the other day. Yeah, there's it. Itzhak Bentov. And this Itzhak Bentov had drawn a universe similar to this, which has a universe folding in on itself in a way, where you see this toroid. So if you turn it vertically, you then see the toroidal shape. And I thought it was interesting. It's very similar to this model of mine. I haven't fully investigated it yet, still need to. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop recording and we'll cover another sprint in a few minutes.